it's ready. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Artisan School. I'm one of the teachers here, and we have some fun stuff to learn. I'm joined by other instructors, Stacy, as well as Coburn and Jacob, and so we are the supporters of everybody here. We want to support all of the technicians and questions, whether they're questions about piano servicing, whether they're about their business, but we are here for that. And we do this 3 times a week where we just pour in and grow together. And today we're going to be learning about upright piano tuning. We're going to be using an ETD, but I kind of wanted to walk people through the very basics because we haven't done this in a while. And I think the last time we did it, I had very short hair and I looked like I was about 14. So let's do it again. So we're going to be going through and just all of the kind of the basics of kind of what we do. We have some good angles, and we're going to just talk about the core and the basics of tuning an upright. I think all this week we're going to be doing tuning. Jacob's going to be doing some more aural tuning, and then I think I'm picking it back up on Friday where we're talking about grand piano tuning. And I want to go over basic protocol, I want to go over technique, and I want to go over posture, because these are very important things that I think if we glance over, not only are we doing ourselves a disservice, our customers are a disservice, but our bodies a disservice as well on some of these things. So we might as well get it done. I'm going to go and pound a little bit more coffee, and I'll be ready. I'm going to be ready. Oh, that was a really ugly slurp. I'm sorry, guys. So we've come to our piano. This is can you all see that? Perfect. So this is a P22, very, very common piano that you're going to see in the marketplace. And for this, you're really going to need 4 primary tools. So whether you pick and choose, maybe you're like Alan, our technician up in Seattle, and you're like, hey, I got a dozen different tuning levers, and I'm going to choose the right one for the job. Or you're somebody that's like, you know what, I got my tried and true, this one, this one, this one. You're going to need a piano tuning lever. And there's a lot on the market. Get something that you feel comfortable with your budget. I would say the going rates for a fairly decent piano tuning lever are anywhere between $300 and $1,000. Stacy, Jacob, can anybody weigh in? Is that about right? Or
the nicer ones? Yeah, like a really decent. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I think you can get away with getting what you can afford. So yeah, whatever your budget is, try to get the best that you can afford, and then go from there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just mine, I think 8 years ago. I had purchased mine 8 years ago, 13-inch, and it was around about $400.
Okay. Yeah. The thing that you're going to be looking for is just the comfort level, comfortability. You're going to want something that's rigid, that doesn't have a lot of flex to it. And you want something that will mate to the tuning pin really well, that there's not a lot of wobble. So some of the things that you will see on the internet, like on Amazon, is what we call apprentice tuning hammers. Now, I learned on one of those, and it was fine. But as soon as you level up to one of these more professional series tuning levers, you're going to find that the control over the tuning pin and the ability to get those final minute changes increases dramatically. So tuning lever is absolutely a must. For tuning aurally, for using an ETD, which is what we're going to be doing, I just always carry 2 mutes with the upright. I carry just a felt, or not felt, well, you could use a felt, but I usually use a rubber mute. This is about a 3.5 inch by 1/2 inch tuning mute, and this is rubber. And then I use a Papps mute for getting in between in the treble string area. So this is kind of my muting system for uprights, and this is it. I don't use a temperament strip. I don't use multiple mutes, like a bunch of them. I just use these 2. Now, I do recommend, I don't have one on me right now, otherwise I'd show you, but when you're lifting the lid, it's good to have a lid prop. And maybe what we could do is put that in the chat, just so people know a lid prop is usually just a small device that goes and makes it so this lid doesn't fall on you and snap off your fingers. Not that would happen, but it can get pretty intense.
I think it's a must-have.
It is
a must-have too.
I do.
It's also nice if the piano's up against the wall and you don't want to scratch the wall.
being annihilated right now. It's a must-have. You're right. It is absolutely a must-have. I was being polite and be like, no, you don't have to. You need it. Get a lid support, lid prop. And then finally, we have our ETD. And then for folks that don't know, that stands for Electronic Tuning Device, ETD. And there's several ones on the market. It feels like since birth, been using the Rayburn Cyber Tuner, which is this guy right here. Now, this is an app that you can download and put on your tablet, your iPhone. I think this is called an iTouch. Is that what these are called, Stacy? These things? That feels weird to say it. It's called an iTouch. That feels weird.
So
iTouch, little thing. And so that it gets downloaded. Just so you know, we at Artisan and even at the Artisan School really recommend this. All of our technicians use it. I would say it is the premium piano tuning software at about $1,000. Now, if you contact us directly, we can go ahead and as a student or as a member of this group, you can get a fairly significant discount, but you just contact us directly for that, and you can get a discount on the software itself. But this is going to be what we're going to be using to tune this piano today. And I like to say what we use is kind of a hybrid tuning method. And so we're using not only the device and our eyes, this device allows us to see what the sound waves are doing. It allows us to use our eyes to visually measure what is happening. So we're going to use our eyes and our ears in this hybrid tuning method. Now, a lot of customers early on, 20 years ago, when this stuff started coming out, were like, wait a second, are you not going to use your ears at all? You just use this? Couldn't I just do this? You know what? What it is we are going to use our ears. We're going to use the knowledge and the skills that we have in aural tuning and apply it and use this as a tool, because it's a phenomenal tool that helps us really create an amazing tuning. Now, I have to say that 25 years ago when I started using stuff like this, it was a lot more of an uphill battle to talk to your customers about this. They were not having it. They were like, wait a second, no. My old technician was blind. He just tuned aurally. I want you to just use that. Okay. Over the last 20 years, these have increased to the point where, Jacob, what do you think? 9 out of 10, at least, technicians out there use this?
Yeah, definitely. The majority of technicians are using some sort of electronic device easily.
Yeah. Even the aural tuners that we have here in Indianapolis, they're still using ETDs for pitch raises to bring it up to pitch, even if they do the fine tuning as an aural tuning.
Even in the registered piano tuning exams for the Piano Technicians Guild, I believe that they now allow some amount of use of ETD. And Jacob tests people. Is that true, Jacob?
I haven't really, no, I haven't paid attention to the change, so I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, I just heard that they've made some allowances for doing some portion of the tuning exam with an ETD, but I don't know if that's stuck or not.
Yeah, there's three parts to the exam, and the second
that.
part allows for ETD use.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They haven't changed the aural section of that, though.
Correct. Yeah, you orally set the temperament. Then when you do the full range, you're able to use an ETD. And then when you do unisons, it's back to aural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that there was talks about changing that, but yeah, it sounds like they haven't. So.
The changes haven't. I know that they proposed some changes, but I don't think anything's happened.
Okay.
So when it comes to using this device, there's two ways that you can do it. And I would say the majority of all the tuning devices like this out there have a feature very similar. So you can actually go to a pre-recorded or preset. Geez, that is gross. Sorry, my screen is like, what? Did you blow your nose on this? I'm just looking at it in the, whoa. So there's usually a bunch of pre-recorded pianos that you can select from. Or you can go ahead and record the actual piano. So I kind of like to double it up. I like to go, I think that this is roughly a Kawai, it's around that size, a Kawai upright. So I select that, and then I do my my measuring or my recording of it. I don't know if that helps at all. mentally, like the placebo effect is full on working, and I feel like it does, but I have no way of telling if that helps or not. Questions about any of this so far? And I know that a lot of the people here have already done a lot of tuning and using this stuff, so it's kind of more of a recap. What were you just say, Jacob?
I just wondered if you had, is the decision of using an iPod Touch just because of battery? Because I have a phone, and then I have my iPad, and I do the tuning from the iPad or from my SAT.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why you don't use your phone.
Yeah, this is a great question. So we at Artisan Piano Services, which is our main, which is the main company, we have multiple technicians and actually them in different states. And so we didn't want to mandate that they put that on their device, their own personal phone. So we wanted to figure out a solution that we can purchase something that they could just use as its own dedicated thing, which is the reason why. And so I actually had a talk just last week with Dean from Rayburn, Dean Rayburn of Rayburn Cybertuner, and he very much recommended the little small tablets. This is the audio in the way that the microphone, and actually I might work on getting that device pulled from there onto my little tablet, because not only is it visually bigger as I was getting older, my eyes, it starts to whatever, but it apparently is able to pick it up that much better. But to answer your question, that's the reason.
Thanks.
So what this is very simple. And as you can see, there's these series of green little dots or green little indicators. And so what we're going to be doing is testing each of these A's. So A4, A3, A5. No, yeah, that's right. A5, and then it goes A1. So we're going to be recording each one of these. Now, the way it was shown to me is it doesn't matter how many times or how fast you do it. It just matters that you get it in the green. And so in some cases, when you're recording this, it'll be a long pause as it moves. And I'm going to show you this in real time. So what I'm going to do is simply mute off one of my trichords. So again, I have in this middle section, there are 3 strings per note, and I'm muting off 2 so that I have 1 string ringing out. And that's what we're going to be listening to right here. And so I like to do, so I have it set right here. I'm going to go hit this record button. Boom, it's ready to go. I'm going to hit A4. This is about the speed I go. Okay, so right there it said that it's A440.6, so it's really close to being in tune. It also recorded in the green. Now it will either go and record and say, hey, it's green, or it's yellow, or it's red. So I've fudged it a little bit and been like, okay, it's yellow. The recording wasn't great. I'm going to go with it anyways, because sometimes I can't get a great recording of that note, but it seems to balance out. Whenever it's red, though, I'm trying to do it again. So with that one set, I'm just going to move my down to the next note right here, and that is going to be A3. And I'm basically hitting it 3 times per cycle. At about that tempo and about that speed. So right there you can see yellow, it's saying that it was about a 0.31, which I believe, Coburn, correct me if I'm wrong, but anything over 0.2, it goes into the yellow. So do you remember if that's the case?
I don't recall the number. I don't recall the numbers, but even if you're using a yellow sample, it's going to be really darn close regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Numbers
for me,
are variations, and it's
go ahead. What was that?
so like what you say 0.3. The numbers are variations in cents that are recorded. So it's like You have a variation that's plus or minus 0.3 cents, I think, on the recording. That's how accurate it is.
Which is very, very minimal. And the software is so sophisticated. So I'm going with it. I'm going to continue to move on. And what I usually do is I'll record each of these notes, and then I'll be like, you know what? I'll go back if I feel like it. If I feel like there's something a little bit off, I'll go back and resample. But right here, I'm going to A2. And again, you can go like this. This bugs me for some reason. I don't know why. But when I just do longer strokes like that, it feels like it measures it better.
But if you just do one per cycle, that's pretty good.
So we're gonna just do one.
Then like that.
I get impatient. You see that? My ADHD kicking in.
Dean Rayburn
Dang
did
it!
mention.
Victor, you're right. It went green for the long, drawn-out ones. Dang it! You're right.
Doesn't like
Dean
it.
Rayburn did mention he'll just do one until the ear is spinning, except for A5. He'll do that twice per spin. And he says he'll press the note on the piano before the spin is complete, so that way it's Cybertuner's not recording the attack.
Literally, like I'm 3/4 the way, and you're like, by the way, you're doing it wrong. That's why we do this, right?
So it's getting the inharmonicity more, or it's able to hear that more instead of you just striking it over and over again.
So here's A5. So you're saying. Coburn
Yeah,
for
about
the
that
win.
speed.
Coburn for the win right there. Same with Victor. Should fly you to Portland. You guys should teach this thing. What am I doing here?
You want to see Athena's phone holders?
What's that?
You want to see our phone holders?
I do want to see them show.
Fine. Using MagSafe with the tuning tip.
I don't see anything. Do you see anything?
Can you see it?
What? No.
So this is MagSafe. So this is my ETD. So it's just a magnet, and it's just gonna stick on.
What? That's so cool. Do you see that, David?
No, it doesn't show up on my screen.
Oh,
Can
Can you put a picture in chat?
this is okay. Wait. Let me screenshot. I'll screenshot. So,
All right, send me a shot.
Josh, hold it up one more
Put
time.
it in chat.
Is somebody getting attacked by a dog right now? Are you okay? Okay, there it goes.
So it's just magnetic, and then you can move this mount in whatever direction and whatever angle. And it's going to a number 2 tuning tip. So you can put on any pin.
Where did you get it?
The mount I got off of Amazon, but the adapter is completely custom. I had them fabricated at a machinist shop down the street. So there's only 2 of them. I have one in Ramsey's.
Side hustle, Victor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Side
and
hustle.
so it's just like it's like a tuning insert would be, but instead of it being, they could go into your tuning lever, it's going into this phone mount. And we have another version for grands, but I'll show you that, another day.
Victor, you need to
Somebody
like
else
master
buy it.
those and bring them to the convention and sell them.
Oh yeah, and it's so much nicer with the MagSafe because it just can go on,
The problem is the cost of production because
Yeah.
so we need to figure out how to reduce that.
Yeah, but it's pretty expensive. I think it's $150.
Oh, that's not crazy.
$125 if you use CyberTuner. But I think we could probably get these to, I don't know, $100, something like that.
Oh yeah, that's a good deal.
Yeah, but it's awesome. Like since we've both been using them, it's just amazing.
Consistent branding between the two. All right, I'm imagining what this looks like because I can't see it. So, well, look in the feed because I'm sure you're going to post it in the feed, and I would love to see it. We're fairly green. I'm going to hit calculate, and it's going to put me on A0. Now, I'm a sucker for their Smart Tune feature, so I like going back over here where it says Fine Tune, and I go down and I hit Smart Tune, and then it's going to ask me where that strut is. Again, this is me, and this is the way I've done it. You don't have to do it. You could have gone this way and just gone through the fine tune feature. It was close enough, but I like kind of doing it this way. I can see that it is, what is it? E5 is, so I'm going to scroll this because I can see that strut is at E5. So you just toggle through here, E5. I promise that we are not CyberTuner sponsors. We just like it. So this is set, it's ready to go, and I'm ready to start tuning. And so I'm going to select my tuning lever. Right now, I'm really liking this guy. I think these are, I don't know if they're making these right now, but this is the Ergo hammer, and I am like loving this hammer right now. It's like, I don't know. To be honest, in this lesson, this is literally the first time I've ever tried tuning with a, Coburn, say it the right way.
Fuyan.
Fuhan? Fu what?
Fuyan.
I always say Fujan. I know that everybody is like, wait, what? Fuyan.
Literally,
Fuyan.
Coburn knows how to actually say it. He actually wrote the company.
I emailed Steve Fuyan, and he's like, I don't even know.
What? This is probably one of the most popular tuning levers on the market. It's fairly affordable. It's the Fuyan tuning hammer, tuning lever right there. And these are available at like Shaft, or you can go direct to them. And this is a great little lever. I've just always had my Yawn, and now I'm experimenting with some other ones. But today we're doing this. Now, posture is so critical. And I know that, there's everybody's different size, they're different heights, they're different body weights, everything, long arms, short arms. What I have found in teaching, our technicians is that we want to get up close. And so we don't want to be, I see this all the time. I see this on pictures of technicians tuning, and they're like this. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I don't even know what you're doing and how much you're working your body. So I've always had the approach, along with my mentors over the years, is get in close. So if you notice, my body is actually kind of pivoted this direction so that I'm in line. And I'm not bending down and doing this, but I'm literally bending my legs down and spreading them out a little bit so that I can get a little bit lower on this piano. And I'm wanting to utilize this part, the shoulder, as well as my arm, and not use too much of my back. And so that's what I have found critical. And I've been tuning pianos, probably 1,000 pianos a year since I was like, I don't know, I started when I was 15. So I've tuned a lot of pianos, and I've no real back issues. And a lot of it was because I think that what my mentors taught me was just good posture. And so my fondest desire would be that you all just can have a long, amazing career and not have any injuries. So again, I'm up close and personal. I'm utilizing the shoulder. And if you notice, I'm not out here doing it. I'm up close. I'm close and tight. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of the process. Is I'm close in with the piano. I'm not hunched. I'm kind of compact and just ready to go. But talk to me about your all's processes And have you started doing this?
Well, first I have a question. When do you sit at an upright versus when you stand at an upright? And where is that division of upright types and height of the piano?
Great. For me, I listen to my body. And so spinets all the time. I'm always sitting in a spinet. I'm always sitting in a grand. Now, we used to have this technician that worked for us, and he was great, and he has a great sense of humor, but he was very, very short. And he would just stand to these grands and stand to the spinets, and it was like the right height for him, and it was fine. But for me, I struggle with the console. So you give me a Story and Clark console, I'm like, is this up or down? No matter what, I'm trying to spread my legs so I'm bringing my body lower.
So in that case, those style of pianos at that height for you is kind of in between where you want to be.
I feel you,
absolutely.
David.
Yeah.
I feel you.
And
it's like low squat.
Yeah. And so I'm like working these thighs. I'm just like going for it. I'm roughly 6 foot, so that gives you an idea of where I'm at with that. But I would say a console, you're flipping the coin like, oh man, am I going to stand or am I going to sit with this one? Sometimes it depends on the day and what my diet's looking like for the day. And I'm like, no, I'm sitting this one. But Coburn, I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, because if I remember, did you sit for a lot of the uprights? Is that your protocol?
When I started tuning, it was 10 years ago. It was left-handed for uprights, and it was sitting. And now it's standing for all uprights except for spinets, and it's right-handed. And then grands, it's all sitting and it's all right-handed.
You've been doing it for 10 years? Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't. Yeah, that's a long time.
He is
We've
our
known each
lead
other for a
tech
while.
for a reason. Lots of experience.
Yeah, he's got some chops. Yeah, so that's my protocol. Again, what we're saying is, if I were to stand at full height right here, I'm leaning over quite a bit. But if I just kind of go like this, my leg. Whoa. We didn't screw that in, but that's another thing. But my legs they're up against this key bit. And so I'm kind of turned this way. I'm in the direction of where I want to be. Now,
David, have you ever tried sitting down from studios?
I will try. So Sean, who's our lead tech in Phoenix, is about 8.5 feet tall. And when he sits down to one of these, it's like you and I would sit, you know what I mean? Like, so because he's just so tall. Okay, I'm just.
Yeah, he can like sit on the floor and tune a spinet. He's so tall.
Okay, so I do not like this. I'll just have to be real. I feel like my arm is extended up here. But I do feel like my body isn't straining. I don't feel like there's a weird strain. I think that it's just not what I'm used to.
Yeah, David, I'll let you know, I actually sit for almost all of the uprights unless it's a full upright, because I'm taller and I have a very long wingspan. So I have extra long arms to be able to reach up to the top of my hammer. So I usually am able to sit for most pianos.
Real. Okay, and that's the thing is it will be person to person. Listen to your body and figure out. But I do think that it does still things to be considered are getting up close and personal. You're not way over here, even if you're sitting.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because I do have my stool or any bench that I'm working on. I'm like you are. My hip is up against the key slip and slightly angled. Sometimes I'm actually sitting kind of almost 90 degrees, depending on the piano.
Yeah, like yep, yeah. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think the trick is that, at least according to my chiropractor, the farther away that you have to extend that, farther away from your core, the more that you're putting a strain on your back. So if you're squatting and pulling yourself closer to where you're putting any sort of torque, that's going to be better for your back. You're putting it more on your muscles than your frame. So getting closer is the key.
Yeah, that's so true.
David, I know you've talked about it on grands, but I actually use the technique, where you're talking about the 90-degree angles of the hammer, your arm, and the upper arm, and keeping those angles. I try to keep a similar angle even when I'm working on an upright and sitting. So it has been working for me in that context.
Okay, I can totally see what you're saying, because you're right. There is, instead of being like that, yeah, you can do it in a way where you're keeping almost the square position, like these right angles, so that it's not in this bent, weird way, and you're getting a lot of control. Because that's the idea, is we want controlled movements. We don't want to hurt our bodies, but we want to be able to control the tuning pin in such a way that we're getting the minute changes just nailed.
Yeah, I would say if you're starting off, or anybody watching, I would start off standing though. Because I remember I started trying to sit because that's how our mentor did it, and it's a lot harder to get more control sitting. I would practice, because when I started standing, you get a lot more control because you can get up right on your hammer, and as you get used to that, and you learn how to manipulate the pins, then you can sit down and you can kind of what's going on. But
that's a good point, Victor.
I would say starting sitting, it's pretty difficult because you're not used to the pin feel, and your arm isn't as strong probably, and you're just not used to it yet. So I would definitely recommend standing, and also you hear better standing anyway, and you're probably gonna have a hard time hearing when you start. So I would just stand when you start.
Along the same lines of this, and we've worked with technicians that didn't know how to tune, and their first tuning lever experience was an impact lever. And unfortunately with them, they could tune an upright really pretty well with this, and they had it nailed. But because they were so used to it, when they transferred that over and tried to tune a grand, they didn't know how to really click it into place and to move the tuning pin. So I'm actually a fan of the impact levers, but not until after you learn how to really move the tuning pin and set it. And so kind of what you're saying, Victor, is start standing, and then as you go, work your way. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, because it's not until now that I'm barely starting to sit again on studios. And it's really only, I get kind of tired standing after I get to the treble break, and that's when I'll sit down. And but I'm doing the bass and most of the mids standing. But yeah, I would recommend standing at first. You get more control.
So I don't know who taught me this, and I would love to be like, oh, I taught myself this, but that's just not the case. I think that I just regurgitate what other people taught me. But what I've done over the years in tuning uprights is my first, I'm just going to go right here just so we can kind of see it. So we're pretty sharp. I always break the unison. So like my first move when I'm doing this is always a downward pull. And it's so quick, it's so subtle, but it's just always there. And I didn't even notice I was doing it until when I started teaching more technicians. They're like, wait, what did you just do? I'm like, I didn't do anything. They're like, yeah, your first move seems to always be a quick downward push. And I don't know where I kind of picked that up, but I actually really do think it's a good idea, because I think that a lot of tunings aren't very stable because they haven't broken that memory of that string in a way. They've only kind of gone up a little bit, maybe bent the pin a little bit, but by breaking that unison and putting it flat, you're able to kind of shake it up and then bring it sharp and then ease it back down. And I've had good experiences with with tuning stability, and I've been doing it for long enough that I get to go back and see my pianos and be able to be like, oh no, it does work. It does hold up. And so again, it's a very quick little thing. And Victor, Ramses, you guys have been tuning for a while. Jacob, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe you're like, no, David, duh, that's what everybody learns, but I don't know.
So our mentor actually taught us the same thing, but interesting with him though, because what you do is you do like an actual click down, right? Like you move the pin down.
Yeah.
Yeah, our mentor, at least I don't think he actually moves the pin. Like he kind of like just like kind of hits it down. I guess he is moving it.
Like a slap down.
Yeah, it's like he slaps it down kind of forcefully. But so we've always been doing that. But I like the way you do it because I don't feel like I'm hitting the pin. Like I'm just clicking it down and then I go.
Yeah. I notice I do it
David,
more for uprights than grands. I don't know why.
Interesting. So I've heard and kind of have been taught the opposite, where you're trying to not move, or you're trying to only move the pin as little as possible. And so especially around this neck of the woods, that would probably be frowned on. So I've been experimenting since I've heard this the first time. Like, how long have we been talking now?
Yeah.
So I've been experimenting with this, and it does not affect your stability. It's not gonna, well, at least it's not gonna decrease your stability. And I have seen anecdotally that, at least for pitch raises and stuff, it has reduced strings breaking.
I would agree with that.
Increases stability for pitch raises.
Yeah, because any of the tension on the V-bar or any of the pins that the string is moving across, you're breaking that friction by taking that string flat and then bringing it up to pitch. And so you're less likely to break strings. Doesn't mean you can't still break strings, but you lessen that. And then on top of that, for any pianos that are haven't been tuned in a long time, and there might be a little bit of rust, if you do a little bit of Protec on the V-bar or on the pins and stuff, then or on the termination point and stuff, then it's going to improve everything.
It is interesting. Now, granted, I don't do as many tunings as our other guys, but I would say, I mean, I follow this process religiously, and I really don't have a lot of strings that break. And I don't know if that adds to it or not. So that I'm glad that you've experimented with this, Jacob, because I'm just like, I don't know where I picked it up. I'm sure somebody showed it to me, but I just don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a philosophy of mine. Like, if there's something that I've been told, and it's just kind of like, this is the way it is, and then I hear something else, I'm going to try it, because I'm not afraid of trying and changing my routine and being better. And so that one was a new one for me. So I tried it out. And I would say, especially if you're starting out, do this. This is gonna improve it quite a bit. So I would highly recommend doing that.
That's good, because we're going to be teaching it this way in the Artisan School curriculum.
That's great.
We'll see if we get some head turners, but I don't know. I think Jacob and I and Cobra and Alan, all of our team, and Stacy, it's just, we want to try things out. And I think that's the great thing, is like there's a collective here that wants to try things out, that we're not stuck to a certain way. It's just, we don't know, but let's play with it. And I think that's part of the fun thing about having this little group, that we could just every day, like, oh, I didn't know about that. And like Jacob, I didn't know, was experimenting with this for the last year potentially. So that's pretty awesome. We've gone through the posture, the tools that are essential, how to go ahead and measure using like an ETD to get your tuning roadmap. Let's call it the roadmap is set. And it launches you right at A0, which is different. Like when you're tuning a piano strictly aurally, you're going to build your center octave, your temperament, and then you're going to kind of build out. So this device, the ETDs, usually will start you at one end of the piano and you just work your way down. Now, the trick, since well, that's pretty close. Since we're trying to, I would say that using an ETD is a fairly minimalist approach, and we kind of carry that same minimalism in how we tune and how we mute off the piano. So obviously we have the single notes right here. You don't use a mute. You just go ahead and tune it. You're using the device, and you're using your ears. You're able to see. Now, what you want to do, and let's just see, just as a kind of a basic, is you're going to see, okay, this piano's sharp a little bit. And so you're going to, it's kind of, I'm sorry, but it's kind of like playing a video game. It's kind of that way. A little kid, a customer's kid came to me, and he was like looking at me and he's seeing what I was doing. He was looking at me and looking at what I was doing. And he's like, so you get paid to play a video game? I'm like, well, it's more than that, Jimmy. But then I thought about it, like, no, it's not. It's actually pretty fun, and I like it. It is kind of like that. You do use your ears, you use your body, and you use your tools, and I love that. But there is, when you're using the ETD, you're using a hybrid method where you're using your eyes, you're using your ears, and you're kind of making the circle go in the center. It really allows you to focus on tuning stability. And that's the beauty of using an ETD and using a hybrid method is you're able to, this has built the map for you to follow, and you can follow it well and do really good stable tunings using an ETD. And Jacob, you and I have talked about it before, but the reality is you will get called back to a customer, not because of the stretch or your 12s are, it will be because your unisons are off. That's where that's why they're going to call. Always, that's why they're going to call you back. It's always that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a tool that allows you to focus on the unisons. And that's what we teach in the Artisan schools. We actually introduce you to the ETD before we really go into all the aural tuning skill sets, because this is a great start in helping you develop that muscle control, that movement, and that tuning pin stability. Because if you can tune and have it stable, you are off to a huge, huge start. Questions about any of this so far? Sorry.
No, David, did you get to try the Supply 88 mutes, or did you carry them in your everyday? I strictly moved over. I'm not using anything else anymore. There's nothing better, I don't think.
We'll talk about that at the very end. I have thoughts on it. I'm a big fan. Mark and Don, I love them to death, and their mutes are awesome. And I do recommend them, but there's a funny story behind them, and we'll talk about it afterwards, because it was kind of a funny brainstorming fun thing to do. So yes, I am a fan of them, and yes, you should go out and buy them because they're really cool. For those that are watching, you know, we've said everything, and now we're just going down the line. We're using our tuning mute. We have either felt or a rubber tuning mutes, and we simply go through it. So we've tuned all the single strings, very easy. We don't use a mute. But now that we go through and start tuning our bichords, that's 2 strings per note, what we do is we tune, at least what I do, I should say, is I tune the far left string to my device. So I will make sure that it's right and perfectly in tune with the device. And then I will listen first and tune it aurally. I will listen to that pattern. Then I will listen and make sure that it sounds good. And then I'll double check it with the device. Looks good, move on. And I'll do that same process all the way down, tuning that left string to the device, tuning the right string to my left string, listening to it by ear, and then checking it with the device. That's what I do. And guess what? That same process goes all the way down to where we're in the trichords. Same thing happens. So I am going through, boink. Going through, and I'm tuning. So now we have the trichords. That's 3 strings per note. I am tuning my far left string to the device. So in this case, let's see, it's F. So let's just for ease. Oh yeah, you can't see it. Boom. You're like, what are you doing? Okay. So I've tuned my far left string to this device, this ETD, this Rayburn Cyber Tuner, and it's good. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just tune my middle string to the tuned string I just did. Great, I like the sound of that. So now I'm just going to move this mute to the far left string to block up that left string. So I'm tuning my far right string to the center. It's good. Move on and just go all the way down. Now I've seen other people do like this insane like muting pattern where they mute this one off and then the following thing over, and then it works its way, and I'm like, boy, what is this, a math test? Like I didn't even know how you keep track of it. I keep it simple.
That's me.
That's you, Cobran?
Yeah, because I found out by doing the leapfrog with two different mutes.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you're actually having to touch the mutes like 2/3 less of the time, which I don't know, saves 2 minutes on the overall tuning. 2 minutes. 2 minutes over 1,000 tunings a year.
I love that you know exactly how many minutes it saves you. That is the coolest thing ever, Cobran.
I kept it simple because, again, when I was teaching our apprentices, it was like they're already just like swimming in this, and I'm like, fire hose, just here's more. So I'm like, what can we do to cut some of this down? And so it's like, let's just use one mute. Once you get to the treble section where there's not a lot of space, that's when we introduce. This is when we introduce our Papps mute, which I'm a big fan of. If you don't have one of these guys, get one. They're great. And a lot of people are like, oh, do I go above? I don't. I go down in between the rest rail and the string like this. That's what I do. It's always down through here. And it just allows you to kind of get everywhere you need to go. I've done it like this, and I can't tell you how many times it's like every time I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go above, and it somehow hits it and drops down into the piano, and I hate that. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go underneath in between the hammer and the rest rail using that same muting technique. Go 1, 2, 3 over, and that's it. And I just, again, 2 mutes. You got your rubber mute or a felt mute, and then you got your Papps mute. Keep it simple.
So David, on the Papps mute, I've seen 2 different spinets that they have a fixed rail, and for the stickers, and it's in a situation where you can't use a Papps mute because of how the Papps mute can't get through correctly, and I've had to use a rubber mute that's on a stick, on a wire, and I've had to go that route. What route do you go when you run into that?
So, if I'm understanding you right, sorry, my thing was about to die. So you get this is a multi-angle, like, wow, where am I at? I'm in the office. This is like the headquarters. Sorry. So if I'm understanding you right, are you saying that there's just what the heck?
So normally with the Papps mute, you have, your hammers, and you're able to stick the Papps mute through the hammer shanks to get to the strings. Well, in this, spinet, there's a rail that's kind of blocking where that normally would go. So you have no room to stick
the hammer return spring rail.
And so you're having to go over the top, but I run into the same situation you're talking about. It just won't stay. And so I'm having to go with a rubber mute that has a wire, on it to be able to go that route. What have you run into, or kind of what process do you do for those type of spinets?
So what I typically do is I might have a third mute, and that is a very thin, I'm talking less than a 1/4 inch, 4-inch long mute that I can easily put in there. I don't like using the wire ones. I don't know why. I just don't care for those. So I got this fairly long, thin rubber mute, and it allows me to do what I need to do in those situations. But you were right. In those situations when I've used my Papps mute, I swear, every time I do that, I hit it with the hammer, the neighboring hammer, and it falls down, and then I'm having to pull
the other thing I've seen when you're going from up above is, you like to have the Papps mute coming in at an angle, and it just wants to slide over right in the way of the hammer, is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Michael, I'll go ahead and use the Papps mute on spinnets coming up from up top. And then I'll, in order to keep it at an angle, I'll just gingerly jam it in between a few hammers off to the right side.
Okay, I'll have to give that a try.
Enough so I'm not bending the tricord of the unison, because if I bend the tricord, then the hammer's not going to be hitting it as square on, and I'm not going to get a good tone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On another note, with the Papps mutes, sometimes you're going to come to pianos where all three strings in the unisons are spaced really funky. And instead of spacing those out, I'll just, instead of inserting both the tongues of the prongs, I'll just do one side. And it'll be spaced enough so it still can jam it in there. But yeah, so hopefully
there is
that's
one thing
helpful.
I'd like to add.
Yeah.
That's the final bichord in the bass section before jumping over to the treble section. You start with the left string, then you tune the left string to the ETD, then the right string, you tune it to the left, and you continue that. The very last bichord of the bass section, I also like to do that as well. Do the left to the ETD, and then the right to the left string. Even though there's not really a place to put a wedge mute off to the right side of the right string. And the reason why I like to do that is because, especially on uprights, the left strings are going to be longer than the right strings in the bichords. And so I just try to keep that same consistency throughout the entire bass section.
The speaking length is the same, but you're saying that the overall string length is
no. The speaking lengths the speaking lengths are different. If you look at the V bar and the bridge on uprights, the left strings are a little bit longer.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess you are right. I never thought of it that way. But I mean, we're talking a little bit, but you were right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I would have thought that was just for the consistency, and it's actually because of the overall length as well.
And then also, whenever I'm measuring the A's on Cyber Tuner, measuring the A's, I'll measure the left string because that's the one I'm going to be tuning first whenever I actually start tuning.
That's a good point. I'm always measuring that left string as well. That's a really good point. Yeah, hopefully this is, at least for those watching, a good overview. And we go into more of this in detail. And the nice thing is, because we do this 3 times a week, when people have questions like, hey, can we revisit that? We're able to pivot and do kind of little things whenever necessary. So thank you so much. We're going to talk tuning mutes privately. You can join this membership and you get to be in the inside scoop of tuning mute mythology, I guess. Cheers. See you next time.